Alright, so you're searching for a MacBook and you want to know which one should you buy. Well, today's video is for you. I'm going to start with the MacBook Airs and then move on up to the MacBook Pros. Along the way, I'm going to try to answer every question that you guys have asked me. What upgrade should you get? What color should you pick? And of course, how to save the most money. But before we continue, a quick word from today's video sponsor, Ugreen. They've just launched their MagFlow magnetic power bank and their wireless charger. The power bank has a 10,000 milliamp hour battery, which can charge an iPhone Pro twice. It supports the latest Qi2 25-watt standard, meaning it's very fast. Ugreen has said that it can charge an iPhone 16 Pro Max to 50% in just 30 minutes. It has a cable built right in that actually doubles as a carry strap. Very cool design. If you use the cable, you can charge at 30 watts. In fact, using the cable, the USB-C plug, and the wireless charger, you can charge 3 devices at the same time. And if you want to know how much battery is left, just press the power button and it will show up. Super cool little device. They also have the MagFlow magnetic wireless charger, which is a 2-in-1 charger for your iPhone and AirPods or Apple Watch. Check out Ugreen's MagFlow lineup by clicking the link below this video. Let's start with the MacBook Air 13. This is the laptop to get if you're a student or you just want a simple laptop for basic home or office use. In fact, the current generation of Airs are quite powerful for a laptop its size. That means you can actually do more on them than what I just mentioned. Some simple video editing, like stitching together a family vacation, totally fine. Same goes for some basic programming, so long as your projects are simple. Or even some graphic art. Guess what? Our thumbnail designer Pulkit, he uses a MacBook Air, and so does our cinematographer Ethan. Ethan just told me he likes it because it's small and portable to walk around the office with, and it's of course very reliable. If I were to sum up the Air, it is very well built and just gives you an all-round premium experience. Nice bright display, solid battery life, no fan noise, decent speakers and webcam, and of course a great trackpad. It is a laptop you buy and you just don't have to worry about. That being said, of course it isn't perfect. Its keyboard just feels slow travel compared to a MacBook Pro's. It has very limited ports, just 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports and a MagSafe charging port. It also only has a 60Hz display, so fast-moving content just doesn't look as smooth. Next up is the MacBook Air 15. In my mind, this is one of the most magical laptops out there. It is so thin and light for how large its display is. This makes it just a joy to carry around. And unlike many large-screen thin and light laptops, it doesn't compromise on its build quality. Overall, the Air 15 is essentially the exact same laptop as the Air 13, just with a larger battery to handle the increased power needs of its larger display. So once again, it's very premium, no major gotchas other than the same issues that I already mentioned with the Air 13. If they are so similar, should you buy the Air 13 or 15? Well, a large screen just makes most people more productive, and for some, it is a necessity. Say your eyesight just isn't the best. If you're happy to sacrifice a little portability for those benefits, just get the Air 15. That being said, keep in mind the following. If you're traveling on airplanes, you may want to lean towards the 13. Anything larger than a 14-inch laptop, it's pretty challenging on a plane's tray table. Trust me, I know. That's unless, of course, you're in business class. Also, keep in mind that because performance of the Air 13 is identical to the 15, you may want to just get the 13 and pair it with an external monitor, keyboard and mouse. This setup just kind of gives you the best of both worlds. But that approach is a little more expensive than just buying the Air 15, which costs $200 more. My mother, perfect example of someone who should get the Air 15 over the 13. She uses her laptop all around the house and she really values a large display. So this specific Air 15 that you're seeing in our B-roll, that's what she's getting as a present. But don't tell her though. Well, how about upgrades? When it comes to the Airs specifically, I'd strongly recommend you avoid them like a plague. The Airs do not have a fan to keep their processors cool. If you do anything intensive on them for more than a couple of minutes, performance just drops. Don't be tricked, thinking the M4 chip in a MacBook Air performs the same as it does in a MacBook Pro. It doesn't. I bought the MacBook Air 15 with 24GB of memory, edited one of our videos on it. It was a disaster. In complex parts of the video, it just ground to a halt. I ended up returning it and downgrading to the 16GB of memory version. More memory and storage, they're just a bit of a waste on this laptop given its performance limitations. I think the sweet spot for an Air is really 16GB of memory and 512GB of storage. If you need more than that, you really should be upgrading to a MacBook Pro. But what about future-proofing? Many people ask me, should they spend on upgrades for the purpose of future-proofing, i.e. keeping their laptop for say 8 years? This is a terrible idea. Apple's base models, their stock configurations actually offer pretty good value, but their upgrades are a complete rip-off. And when you buy them, you normally have to buy them through Apple themselves. Apple's store doesn't discount their laptops, but you can frequently find them on sale for $200 to say $400 off at retailers. Just check the price tracker on our website, bestlaptop.deals. What I'm trying to say here is that you just can't think of the price of the upgrades in isolation. You have to factor in the amount you're missing out on by not being able to take advantage of one of those sales. Anyway, given how expensive the real price of Apple's upgrades are, and that Macs they hold their value better than others in the second-hand market, it just means it's better to sell the laptop and upgrade it more frequently. I'd say around every 3 to 4 years is really the sweet spot. Most of the upgrades that you would have bought will be included by that time, and you'll get even more bells and whistles. Perfect example. Right now, no current MacBook comes with Wi-Fi 7. As home internet gets faster, moving to Wi-Fi 7, it will probably make more of a difference than having more memory that you don't need right now, but may need in 7 years' time. How about colors? This is really something you should do in person at a store. If you can't get to one though, here's my thoughts. Silver is classic. It matches well with pretty much everything. Midnight we don't love. It picks up fingerprints a bit and just looks dirty pretty easily. Sky blue is my personal favorite. It has that stylish look of silver but looks even more modern. I'd say it skews a bit masculine as it looks a little bit cooler and colder. Starlight, it's kind of the opposite. It looks warmer. I'd say it skews a little bit more feminine. My girlfriend, she chose Starlight and I chose Sky Blue. Alright, let's get into the MacBook Pros. The MacBook Pro 14 is my personal favourite laptop of all time. It's literally won my Laptop of the Year award ever since it's launched. It just defines what a laptop should be. It is portable, yet it is still incredibly powerful, but it just doesn't have the issues that small Windows laptops do with this kind of power. They just get uncomfortably warm to the touch, they have loud fan noise, and they have poor battery life. The MacBook Pro, on the other hand, it just has none of these issues. Its battery life is very long and it is almost always silent. In performance use, it can get warm, that's when doing heavy tasks, but because it is so quiet, you have the thermal headroom to raise the fans for a cooler feeling laptop. I use the Max Fan Control app, by the way, guys, to do that. Other than this, everything else about this laptop is just top-notch. Keyboard, trackpad, webcam, speakers. It even has a great port selection, and all the ports are super fast. There is just nothing major to worry about when buying a MacBook Pro 14, other than which one to get. So let's get into that. Let's start with the model with the M4 chip. It is the most improved MacBook, that's when comparing to the older M3 generation. It now starts with 16 GB of memory, not 8, and it has a third USB-C Thunderbolt 4 port on the right side. Having a charging-capable port on either side of a laptop, it is very convenient. You used to only get that on the more expensive MacBook Pros with the Pro or Max chips. When compared with the Air, the MacBook Pro with M4, it does have a single fan to keep its CPU operating well even under intense workloads. You also get a much better mini LED display that has more vivid colors, it is brighter, and it has a fast refresh rate. Overall, the MacBook Pro 14 with M4, it is the ideal laptop to get for a STEM student if your budget can accommodate it. It's also the entry-level laptop to get for a professional coder or someone doing, say, audio engineering or even DJing. I used to be a professional DJ. When it comes to DJing, it's just much more reliable to have a laptop with a fan in it than not. No one wants the music to suddenly stop because the laptop's got too hot. Alright, now let's talk about the MacBook Pro 14 with the M4 Pro chip. These laptops are a significant step up in performance from the M4 ones. It's not just extra CPU and GPU cores, you're also getting significantly faster memory, i.e. more memory bandwidth. And it has a dual fan cooling solution. When under load, it's actually quieter than the M4 variant of the MacBook Pro 14, as that laptop only has a single fan and it has to spin it more to keep its processor cool. Overall, a MacBook Pro 14 with an M4 Pro chip, it is the ideal laptop for a programmer, engineer, or anyone who just wants real performance in a highly portable form factor. Our lead developer for our website, bestlaptop.deals, he uses the MacBook Pro 14 with an M4 Pro 14-core CPU. Guess what? So do I, guys. For me, it's portable enough to take to a coffee store, it's got insane battery life, and I just love that everything about it is premium and works really well. Plus, when I'm away, it is good enough for me to review our videos on. Now, if you want even more performance, you may be tempted to upgrade to an M4 Max chip. These are another big step up in performance, more cores and even more memory bandwidth. But one of the biggest benefits is you get 2 media engines, not one. If you've done any video editing, you'll know that the slowest part of the process is normally rendering the video. Having double the encoders and decoders, it literally makes a Max chip around twice as fast as a Pro chip to do that. So professional video editors should absolutely try to get a Max chip, but a word of warning. The MacBook Pro 14, it does not have as beefy a cooling solution as the MacBook Pro 16. Because of this, it just can't feed its Max processor as much power. So you won't be getting the full value out of that chip in the MacBook Pro 14. This issue, by the way, it doesn't happen with the M4 Pro chip. That one just doesn't need as much power. Overall, I'd only get a MacBook Pro 14 with a Max chip if you absolutely need maximum portability and you're okay knowing that you aren't getting the full performance out of what you're paying for. Finally, the MacBook Pro 16. This is the laptop to get if you want the most productivity. A larger screen is just going to make you more effective, especially for productivity applications. Take programming and video editing. You have a ton of these small windows open. The extra screen real estate, it really helps. Also, as I mentioned, with a MacBook Pro 16, it can make full use of an M4 Max chip. So here's my recommendation of who should buy a MacBook Pro 16 and which one you should get. If you're a programmer or engineer that just doesn't move around a lot, buy the MacBook Pro 16 with an M4 Pro chip. For you guys, you're not going to get a lot out of a Max chip. For example, you're moving from a 14-core CPU in the higher-end M4 Pro chip to a 16-core one in a Max chip. It's just not going to matter all that much for most of you. If you are a professional photo or video editor, I'd definitely go for a MacBook Pro 16 over the smaller 14. You're going to really appreciate that larger display. A Pro chip is fine for a photographer, but for a video editor, I'd absolutely, as I said, try to get a Max chip. That's for the extra media engine. I think I've already talked about this. 2 of our video editors here use the MacBook Pro 16s with a Max chip. Also, if you're doing intensive 3D rendering in your work, absolutely a Max-powered MacBook Pro 16. You're going to really benefit from those extra GPU cores. And this leads me to my last big user base that can really benefit from a Max chip: data scientists. At least those who want to test and run models on their laptop itself. Getting a Max chip just unlocks customizations for more memory, right up to 128 gigabytes. As Apple's memory is unified, it can be shared between the CPU and GPU. The size of the model that you can run, it depends on how much memory your GPU has access to. An NVIDIA RTX 5090 laptop GPU in a Windows laptop has 24 GB of VRAM. So technically, you can run larger models on a MacBook Pro 16 if you fully spec it up. When it comes to upgrading a MacBook Pro, I'd once again try to avoid it for most people. Just like I talked about with the Airs, the upgrades, they're ludicrously overpriced and you're likely missing out on a sale if you do that. Plus, when it comes to the MacBook Pro specifically, Apple already has a pretty nice upgrade path where every couple of $100 more, you're getting a better machine. Perfect example, if you're considering adding more memory to a MacBook Pro with an M4 chip, you're probably just better off getting the M4 Pro version. That comes with more memory to begin with. Its starting config does come with less storage, but I think a better processor is more important, as you can't do anything about that after you buy. You can always add an external storage drive or just store your files in the cloud. This being said, I really do think that all Apple laptops should come with a bit more storage to begin with. The highest end stock MacBook Pro 16, in particular, it only comes with 1 TB. Those are often bought by professional video editors like us. 1 TB is just really rough, especially as those laptops cost more than $3,000. Overall, the only upgrades that I can see making sense is that one, more storage in a high-end video editing MacBook, or perhaps getting more memory in an M4 Pro model for specific types of programmers. Say you need to run a VM or multiple VMs on your laptop. Now just be aware, as I said before, you may be missing out on a sale by not buying the laptop stock. With that in mind, I'd probably only upgrade if you are doing multiple upgrades, so you spread that additional cost across. And this leads us to another upgrade that you guys might be considering. Should you get a NanoTexture display? Well, if you use your MacBook in direct sunlight, absolutely. Also, if you want the best possible battery life, then yes. You see, if you use your MacBook in an environment where there are reflections, you don't need to have the screen as bright with a NanoTexture display. You can turn it down a notch or so. That being said, for a lot of people, it's just not worth it. I bought a MacBook Pro with it, and I ended up swapping it out to a glossy screen. The NanoTexture makes content look a tad grainy, and it isn't as vibrant. Plus, the glossy screen in the current generation of MacBook Pros, the M4 series that is, they get really bright, up to 1000 nits. And lastly, on the extra battery life, as I said before, the MacBook Pros have such good battery life anyway, you really might not need more. So, now that you know which MacBook Pro to get, if you are choosing between the colours, I'd lean towards the silver. It looks more stylish and classic, and it's more neutral, meaning it goes with more things. Space black, it doesn't look entirely black and it gets dirty more easily. Alright, before we wrap, I do want to talk about older MacBooks and which are worth buying. For most buyers of MacBook Airs, guys, you're going to be absolutely fine saving some money and getting an older M3 Air, so long as it has more than 8GB of memory. Apple used to only give you 8GB in their starting models, and that is a big trap. Once you go back further to an M2 or even M1 version, the laptop does start to feel a little less snappy. Ethan actually uses the M2 MacBook Air, and when he tried a newer one, he did notice that it felt faster. I wouldn't go as far back as the MacBook Air M1 unless you're getting it for around $400 or less. It does use an older chassis with a smaller display. When it comes to the Pros, it's an odd situation. You see, the M2 Pro and Max chips in some contexts are just as good as the M3 Pro and Max versions, so there could be a lot of money to be saved. When it comes to the Pro chip specifically, Apple changed the mix of cores for the M3 series, giving you less performance cores and giving you more efficient ones. They also reduced the memory bandwidth with most M3 chips, so that's why the M2 Pro 12-core has the same multi-core performance as the M3 Pro 12-core. But it isn't all bad for the M3 series. One of the benefits of this change is extra battery life on the M3 MacBook Pros. So, if you are just looking for performance and you don't need extra battery life, if you can find a phenomenal deal on an M2 Pro MacBook Pro, that is a good idea. When it comes to the M4 Pros to the M3 Pros, be careful. If you do anything intensive, the newer one is much better. It is significantly faster, it comes with 6GB of extra memory, and that memory itself is a lot faster. I'd only consider the older one if you aren't going to be pushing your MacBook Pro and you're saving at least $400. Obviously, just make sure you factor in that the current gen often goes on sale. With the Max chips, the M2 is still very viable, particularly for video editors. As I mentioned, editing is heavily dependent on the number of media engines, and this just hasn't changed since the original M1 Max. You still get 2. So for rendering, which is the most intensive part of video editing, most of these high-end Max laptops, they perform the same. Nick, one of our video editors, he uses the M2 Max MacBook Pro 16 right now. Now, if you do buy one of these older models, or even a returned or open box, I would try to buy it from a big retail store. That's versus Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, or say Gumtree. Most retailers, they do cover them with their return policy, and you normally get Apple's warranty, which means you can also extend it with AppleCare Plus. Basically, you have recourse if there is an issue. This leads to my final question. Should you fork out for AppleCare Plus? I think it's worth it, I really do. Macs are great laptops, and I can easily see most people holding onto theirs for the full 3 years that it covers you for. I literally had my MacBook Pro 14 screen replaced because it had a small chip in it. I don't know if that was my fault, but they didn't ask questions and just replaced it. Before I became a professional laptop reviewer and needed to swap laptops every few months, I did buy AppleCare Plus on my own MacBooks. I think I've now covered everything. Actually, one last important point. If you can't afford to buy a new MacBook, do not be tempted to get a credit card and pay installments, or use buy now, pay later. If you are struggling financially, those have a huge risk of making things worse. As I've shown you, there are plenty of options to get an older MacBook on a big discount or a refurbished one from a reputable reseller. If you still have questions, just leave a comment down below. And as usual, if you are shopping for a laptop, you need to be using our website bestlaptop.deals. We scan for the best sales right across retailers. We have a price tracker so you can see how good a sale truly is. And we even call out when we feel a laptop's price makes it a good or great deal. Well, this has been a mammoth video, guys. Till next time, go do something awesome with your day, and I will catch you later.